Welcome to the 31st show in a series of shows focused on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the World Health Organization designated Brookline its first age-friendly community in New England. This was a result of work done by the Select Board, by the town departments, and leadership of Brookline Can, an all-volunteer organization that represents residents of all ages in Brookline. We're now approaching the Brookline town election, which is on May 4th. Following that, we have on May 19th, it starts, the town meeting. A key individual and a key official involved in both of these is the town moderator. After 27 years in the position, Sandy Gadsby is not running. And for the first time in 27 years, there's a contested race. Sandy Gadsby is our guest today. Sandy is was a Brookline town meeting member since 1981. He was on the Brookline Advisory Committee, mostly as a vice chair, and was elected town moderator since 1984, again and again. Sandy has been a Boston corporate lawyer for over 55 years, most recently as a partner at Foley Hogue, from where he retired. Sandy's a Brookline resident for over 50 years. And his family includes a wife, Nancy Brown, 2 children, and now I'm jealous, 8 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren. Welcome, Sandy.
So Thank you, Matt.
Yeah. Can we just, when we get started, before we get into anything, I just wanted to personally, and I think for everybody I know, thank you for your service to Brookline. Because over the years that I've been here, which is about 20 years, I've just watched you year after year and been and admire you. We're going to miss your presence at the center of the town meeting, before, during, and after, and all the things we find out that you do there. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
So town meeting. What is town meeting?
Well, let me give you a brief history. Town meeting is our town legislature, and its ancestry goes back to Scandinavia more than 1,000 years ago. The first town meeting in this country was held in the Mayflower, and the Brookline town meeting, first one convened in 1704, which was the year that Brookline became a separate municipality from Boston. We have a representative town meeting, which was authorized by statute in 1915, and we're the first community in Massachusetts to have a representative town meeting instead of an open town meeting to which everyone can attend and vote.
All 60,000? All in an open town meeting, everybody, every homeowner or every resident?
Every voter, every registered voter can attend and vote. In a representative town meeting, we elect our representatives, and Brookline has 16 precincts, each of which elects 15 town meeting members. That's 240. The select board, our members of the select board are at-large members, as are the town clerk, town moderator, and any representative who's in the Great and General Court who lives in Brookline. We have one currently, Tommy Victolo. So there are 248 representative town meeting members, all of whom can vote. The function of town meeting is to act as your town legislature. New England towns have an executive consisting of the select board and a legislature consisting of town meeting. And town meeting performs key functions in a New England town. All significant expenditures of town funds have to be approved by town meeting. Town meeting approves the budget, which is the main event in the annual town meeting coming up. Town meeting enacts zoning bylaws
Right.
and other non-zoning bylaws and amends current bylaws. It passes resolutions on all kinds of esoteric issues. And I think the only other thing I can think of that generally it does is to initiate special acts of the legislature. They have to be initiated by town meeting.
So does basically they meet, the annual meetings, what's coming up, right? But how many times a year does it meet?
Well, we typically meet always twice a year. The annual town meeting in late May and a fall town meeting, which starts the week before Thanksgiving. Any citizen can gather 200 signatures and force the town to hold a special town meeting. But that happens fairly rarely. So that generally speaking, we have 2 big meetings a year, and sometimes the select board creates a special meeting when something, the timing of some action that has to be taken doesn't conform to the timing of the annual or special fall town meeting.
And they can do that on their own, right?
Yes, they can. No signatures required. So let's discuss for a bit the role of the town moderator, which is, I think, what this session is mostly about.
Absolutely.
A role that I've played for 27 years, and with some misgivings and reluctance in not running for re-election. So the moderator's role really starts when the initial planning starts for a town meeting. About 3 months before the meeting convenes, the process of putting together an agenda commences, and the agenda consists of is set forth on something called the warrant, which means a warning, really. And the agenda items are called warrant articles. So we'll be referring from time to time during this session about to warrant articles.
It took me a number of years when I first moved here to realize that, one, I wasn't being arrested when I heard about this warrant that was coming. And second of all, to separate the warrant from the article. I always had it reversed.
Well, the real trick is separating the warrant article from the motions, because town meeting doesn't vote on articles, it votes on motions that are made under articles. And I hope in the course of this session to make clear the difference in how motions are created and play out. In any case, the moderator's role starts when the articles start being proposed, either by the select board or town departments, or by citizens. And a citizen can create and file a warrant article with just 10 signatures. What the moderator does in the initial stages is to assist citizen petitioners in putting together warrant articles in not only the right form, but it makes sense to be voted on by town meeting. So there's that process that precedes the issuance of the warrant, which takes place, I think, about 2.5 months before the town meeting itself. Then the moderator's role becomes one of planning for a town meeting. And that process is one of structuring the debate, of assisting people in signing up to speak at town meeting, in educating town meeting members and others about the specific issues that are raised by the warrant for the forthcoming town meeting, and the special procedures that will apply. With an in-person town meeting, this is a relatively straightforward process.
Right.
The moderator helps people learn about town meeting and learn how to participate in it. For the last 3 town meetings since the governor's declaration of emergency because of the COVID crisis, we've held virtual town meetings, and that complicates the role of the moderator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I imagine
Well, it
complicated things, Andy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, there's a very complicated law that was enacted to permit representative town meetings to hold virtual town meetings and have them validated, because without that legislation, you could only hold an in-person meeting, which of course is not de rigueur under the rules of the pandemic and the governor's declaration. So the moderator has to initiate the virtual town meeting, has to make sure that all of the statutory I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and assist in educating with the education process for town meeting members and other participants in the meeting. It's quite a bit more complicated than having them just show up and be instructed on the spot. And that there are a series of memoranda and emails that the moderator sends out to really command this education process, which takes a lot of time. And
You have anybody assisting you? Do you have a staff?
no. Well, no, it's me. When I started this in this position, I used to keep track of my time because I was a partner in a law firm, and you had to account to your partners as to how much time you spent. And I used to spend 200 or 300 hours a year doing work as a moderator. I think that's at least doubled over the last, particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, because the issues have become more complicated, and for reasons that we'll get into, the process of moderator has become more complicated and time consuming. So it's really up to the moderator to organize the how the meeting is conducted, how the key elements are the creation of speaker lists and giving people priority based on their status as a petitioner of a citizen's petition, or a member of the select board or town advisory committee sponsoring a motion. Remember motions?
Yeah.
Under an article.
That warrants, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So putting together the agenda for the meeting is not just a matter of running down the list of articles in the warrant. It really is a matter of organizing the debate, and the moderator really needs to organize the debate so that both sides of the issue are thoroughly aired, and that what I've always done is to alternate pro and con speakers in any kind of contested article. And of course, that requires that the moderator know what the articles are all about.
Right.
That is quite a time-consuming process. And as I said, it's become more time-consuming as the issues have become more complex.
Right.
So this organizational process is key. And then eventually we get to town meeting, at which, well, in the normal town meeting, it's an in-person session, and people attend, and the moderator stands on the stage and moderates. In a virtual session, such as we've had for the last 2 town meetings, and we'll have in May, everything is done over Zoom.
Right.
And everyone is muted until the moderator recognizes a speaker, at which point the IT staff unmutes them and they can speak.
That must be frustrating to people who are disagreeing with what they're hearing, and they want to wave their arm, and they want, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, the way that's done in a virtual meeting is that they send messages to somebody called the chat monitor,
Okay.
who is a sidekick up the core IT people and the moderator and the town clerk and this chat monitor are actually physically present in the auditorium.
Okay.
And at the point at which in an in-person meeting somebody would walk to a microphone and ask to be recognized, that process is done through the chat monitor. And I get, when I'm moderating a virtual town meeting, I get a screen with a list of speakers waiting to be recognized. That's how that occurs. You know, the one thing I forgot to mention, the pre-meeting role, which is a very important one, is passing on the question of whether to allow certain motions to be offered under articles, and particularly amendments. And people are always wanting to amend what's spelled out in the warrant. And it's the moderator's job, and a very important one, to make sure that any proposed amendments are within the scope of the article, so that the public will have been properly warned about what's coming before them.
Right.
So during the meeting,
people don't use the motion process to use a warrant to introduce a whole different either or slightly related subject rather than.
Well, it's the moderator's job to make sure that anything that comes up at a town meeting is within the scope of a warrant article, and that motions that people want to make have been properly warned. During the meeting, there's a whole parliamentary process that's governed by a parliamentary handbook called Town Meeting Time, and by a 50-page town meeting handbook that's been mostly put together by me, and to a large extent by my predecessors in the position. It's put out under the auspices of the Town Meeting Members Association, and it's something that the moderator not only has to keep current, but he or she had better know everything that's in there and adhere to those rules, because they're an amalgamation of the historic rules and the legal rules for.
So they're going to have to learn this between May 4th and the 19th, learn and do the entire process.
Well, that's a big job, and I got to assume that both of the candidates for moderator are hard at work learning those rules. And each of them has been in town meeting for a number of years, so that they know have been experienced how the rules are really play out in practice.
Okay.
So what the moderator has to do is organize the presentation of motions, amendments, and so forth in accordance with these parliamentary rules, and then conduct a vote. And in an in-person meeting, the vote is sometimes a voice vote, sometimes a hand vote, often an electronic vote conducted through handheld devices that are passed out to each town meeting member. And that's a recorded vote that is under which each voting town meeting member's vote is recorded and posted on the town website. In a virtual town meeting, most votes are not conducted electronically, but they're conducted through the Zoom voting system,
Right.
which has a screen that drops down into people's computer screens, and they vote yes, no, or abstain. And those votes are tallied right on the spot. It's a pretty efficient way of doing it. It results in a great many recorded votes, so that the accountability in a virtual meeting is quite a bit higher than in the typical in-person meeting. So we run through a town meeting, and the moderator conducts it, and the voters vote, and there are disappointed parties and
Sure.
triumphant parties, and somewhere a lot in between.
Yeah, but they're muted, so it's okay.
Yeah. But it's democracy in process. So the other role of the moderator, which is a really important one, I believe, is an appointive process. And the moderator appoints the advisory committee, which is the town finance committee, which comments and reports to town meeting on every warrant article, other than ones that it chooses not to take a position on. And it's a statutory finance committee, so its primary function is financial, but it has it does comment on all significant warrant articles. The moderator also appoints the Committee on Town Organization and Structure, which is a 7-member committee that passes on certain proposals to change the structure of town meeting and town government. And the moderator appoints 3 members of the town finance committee, and appoints special committees that called moderators committees that are called upon to be appointed under town meeting votes. Often town meeting will punt an issue over to a moderators committee for study to be reported on at the next at a future town meeting. So a word about how people participate non-town meeting members participate in town meeting. Our local access television, Brookline Interactive Group, runs a live video as a town meeting is underway. It's broadcast on RCN channel 15 and Comcast channel 23. And that's the way anybody in Brookline who subscribes to either of those services can watch town meeting in process. To participate, any voter is entitled to participate in, any resident really, because I don't make a distinction between voters and non-voters for this purpose, are entitled to participate in an in-person meeting by simply showing up. In order to be recognized, they have to contact the moderator ahead of time and get put on a speakers list, but anybody can attend an in-person meeting. Attending a virtual meeting is a little different because we have security problems and that have to be addressed. So we can't just open up the field to anybody who wants to attend. But we do permit non-town meeting members who wish to present their arguments under warrant articles to attend by notifying the town clerk and becoming part of the list of people to whom the virtual link is emailed so that they can participate, and they appear on lists. They're usually low on the speakers list priority because one of our sort of priority rules is giving priority to town meeting members, and there are always a fairly large number of town meeting members who wish to be heard on anything and everything. So, but we have certainly heard from non-town meeting members, and in fact, on many occasions, we've heard from high school kids who, or grade school for that matter. We had a whole contingent from the former devotion school appear before town meeting when the issue was what to change its name to.
Right.
And they were wonderful.
Yeah.
So I've always encouraged participation by students. And that's essentially.
So what is actually on for this meeting? What do we just a quick summary if we.
Okay, sure. Well, the main matter before us is the annual budget.
Right.
And in Brookline, we have a budget of about $350 million at this point, including capital projects, and which this year are a renovation of Robinson Park and Precinct 5, the Murphy Park, and improvement of Willow Pond.
Right.
There's zoning law changes. There's a big move in Brookline to require fossil-free fuel construction in the future. And it's a tricky business because state law tends to preempt the local towns in this area. So we're in the forefront of trying to institute and implement fossil-free fuel construction.
I think the state just passed something that broadened some of those.
Well, it broadened the. It had nothing to do with. I think you're probably right that the recent energy bill probably addressed this, and I don't know how it impacts the proposal before us.
Right. I just mean that it's going to be. I think that'll probably be front and center. They're going to bring it forward.
As it should be.
Yeah.
The other major zoning article has to do with expanding the use of outdoor restaurant seating for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But the big zoning law change is also a regular non-zoning bylaw, and it has to do with the enacting regulations affecting short-term rentals like Airbnbs. And that is something that came out of a moderators committee that I appointed after the last town meeting. And it's a very comprehensive set of regulations, which is complicated by the fact that there are citizens out there who would expand or diminish the amount of regulations. So there are competing sets of regulations for short-term rentals that will be before town meeting, and it's up to the moderator to procedurally deal with how town meeting addresses and votes on these alternatives. It's very complex, and it will be a real test of the mettle of my successor, who will be moderating our annual town meeting. There's an interesting article that seeks to reappropriate some of the current budget to housing authority building kitchens and rental subsidies and various other matters, all of which town council believes are illegal.
Right.
That is, town meeting does not have the power to make these appropriations, so that in the scheme of rules that to which I adhere, I permit those proposals to come before town meeting with an admonition that they're of questionable legal validity. But that doesn't prevent town meeting from being able to take a position on. That will be a hotly contested item.
And both of those items are of great interest to the older adults of Brookline and the Brookline.
I would think so.
Yes.
And there's one other that I might mention, and that is the legislature, the laws relating to the use of marijuana proceeds require that they be devoted to certain purposes. Well, the select board has proposed that we send a special, that we ask the legislature to create a special legislation for Brookline, enabling us to use a portion of the marijuana revenues for racial equality. I don't know how that will work out, but it's the sort of thing that our town meeting is very likely to approve.
Yeah. Yeah, that's reasonable. And what about the, well, I'm hearing, I was going to ask you what makes a good moderator, but I think it's you, but that's not going to help.
Well, it's a lot of things. Obviously, the moderator has to know the rules backwards and forwards better than the town meeting members that would seek to bend them.
Right.
The moderator can have absolutely no agenda. That is, the moderator keeps his thumb off of the scales at town meeting and must be fair to all sides and without approach the whole matter of debate and voting in a totally unbiased manner. That's not always easy because we all have our own views about everything that comes before town meeting. If you're essentially, obviously, it's the position requires organizational skills, and it's a great benefit. I've certainly found it a great benefit to have legal training because this is more and more frequently occurs that the issues are complicated legal issues that come before town meeting. And if you understand them and understand the legal implications, you're that much better off in trying to moderate. You got to have a thick skin. You got to ought to have a sense of humor. It really helps. And my happiest moments are when I can get a laugh out of my audience, something that I miss in a virtual meeting, where I've just got my IT people laughing.
I'm a lawyer and I'm a host and I refuse.
So you've got to be able to think on your feet, and you have to have equanimity and diplomacy and all the things that you expect that somebody who deals with 248 constituents has to have in order to run a responsible meeting. But if there are a lot of moderators out there in Massachusetts, about 300 of us, and many of them are just as competent, certainly, as I am in running the town meetings. And in fact, I have to say that it's more difficult to run an open town meeting than it is a representative town meeting. I'm dealing with 248 voters. In an open town meeting, often you're dealing with thousands, not often, but certainly there have been town meetings where they've had open town meetings where they've had 3,000 or 4,000 voters in different different venues, and it's a very difficult process. And I really have my admiration for my open town meeting pals.
Yeah, I'm sure they have the largest turnout for the biggest issues, which makes it twice as hard.
Well, that's certainly true. And if you want to build a new school in Pembroke, you're going to have 2,000 people show up to vote on the bonding appropriation.
So I think we're running closer to time. So I'd really like to know, well, one, I was going to ask you about your plans, but is there anything else? I want to give you the opportunity. Is there anything else you really think that you need to point out about? I mean, there's so many, I'm sure, but is there anything really important about the town meeting itself that you want to bring?
Well, I should say a few words about the future of town meeting. I'm quite concerned in Brookline because in the last 2 or 3 years, town meeting has become a very contentious body. There seem to be more and more people each year who think that the rules don't apply to them, who object to the existing power structure, who are prone to attack moderators and members of the select board publicly. And it's become a very a much less pleasant process than it was for most of my tenure. And the impact of that is that town meeting members are becoming disillusioned, I think, many of them, by the stresses and unpleasantness that seems to occur more and more frequently at town meeting. And I'm very concerned about that trend. And I hope that my successor will see a reversal of that trend. They won't have me to pick on anymore, that's for sure. So as far as my own plans are concerned, I will be pretty busy in the immediate aftermath of the election, helping my successor transition and helping whoever it is prepare for the annual town meeting, which occurs only 2 weeks later.
Right.
I may at some point run for town meeting myself to see what life is like on the other side of the podium, where I haven't been for 27 years, and
Right.
might take a taste of that, but we'll see.
What precinct? Do you want to tell me what precinct you're in, or?
I'm in precinct 5, Pill Hill, and south of Brookline Village.
Oh, yeah. I never even knew Pill. I just recently discovered Pill Hill. But
It's a fabulous neighborhood and a wonderful part of town, and if you can possibly afford to live here,
I know it's
it's a
named
great
that.
place to live.
While I was there, I Googled it, and it's named that because the doctors lived there way back.
Well, they not just way back. It's very accessible to the medical area, so we still have a huge population of doctors in all stages of their careers.
Yeah, it's a great area. Really nice.
Yep.
Okay, is there anything else, or because I think we're going to move on, and we've raised enough questions, issues. People should be looking certainly at the 2 people running for town moderator with everything you've said in mind, and think carefully who they choose. I will not recommend one or the other, and I'm not going to ask you to. So
Thank you.
So thank you again. Thank you very much, Sandy, for the show.
You're quite welcome.
This has really been enjoyable and also thought-provoking. The program, to everybody, the program will be rebroadcast several times in the next few weeks. It'll be on Brookline Can's website. It'll be issued on Brookline Can Facebook and Twitter accounts. And I want to thank everybody for watching, and everybody please take care and be safe. Thank you.